Welcome to the Dragon's Den. My name is Leo Drake and thank you for spending part of your day with me. Please consider subscribing as it is free and may prove to be the missing piece of the puzzle in your life. If you enjoy the video, click the like button and ring the notification bell to be notified when I post a new video. In this hair-raising Halloween video, we are ranking films in the Saw horror franchise. I will be discussing the movies during this video, so consider this your one and only spoiler warning. I would offer you a fright warning, but I know you won't get scared. Right? There are 10 movies in this list, so let's get to it.
I want to play a game.
Coming in at number 10 is Spiral from the Book of Saw, which came out in 2021. It stars Chris Rock, who pitched the original idea to the studio after being a fan of the franchise. Chris Rock plays Detective Zeke Banks, whose father, played by Samuel L. Jackson, was the old police captain. If you didn't remember that Samuel L. Jackson was in the Saw franchise, well, he was. A Jigsaw copycat killer is targeting dirty cops in Zeke's precinct. There is no Tobin Bell as Jigsaw in this film. The script is pretty generic, and apart from Samuel L. Jackson, the acting is weak. I'm grateful if this film helped us get more movies in this franchise, but as a standalone film, it falls well short. At number 9 is Saw 7 or Saw 3D from 2010. This was supposed to be the final chapter, and was also supposed to be a 3D experience that audiences would never forget, and perhaps it turned out to be the most forgettable. I can't think of one 3D horror movie that was great from this time period. I do like the idea of Bobby Dagan pretending to be a Saw victim to make money by selling books and making inspirational speeches, especially as Jigsaw is dead. However, he definitely should have seen this coming. Jill Tuck goes to internal affairs after failing to kill Hoffman, though she is anything but safe. This movie feels rushed, and while it has a couple of good ideas, they are not particularly well played out. We barely get any John Kramer, and while I do like the return of Dr. Gordon, it feels like they were racing to close off all the loose ends, rather than focusing on making an entertaining film.
Live or die. Make your choice.
Number 8 is Jigsaw, which is technically Saw 8, which came out in 2017, a 7-year gap from the previous film. John Kramer has been dead for 10 years, and I feel like this movie attempted to reboot the franchise and failed because they chose fairly generic characters, and you cannot have a Saw franchise without John Kramer. It would be like having Halloween without Mike Myers. A Jigsaw copycat has begun the killing again. Detective Halloran and his partner visit the M.E. Logan to hear the results of the victim's post-mortem. The game consists of 5 people unwilling to confess to their sins until faced with their own mortality. Truth will set them free. John Kramer's blood is discovered at one of the crime scenes. His grave is excavated by the police and they discover his body is missing and a recent victim has taken his place. Internal affairs are investigating Halloran, who is chasing down the killer. The game comes to a rather predictable conclusion, and the new Jigsaw killer is revealed and never seen again. Overall, this film fails in rebooting the franchise and adding anything new. At number 7 is Saw 5 from 2008. I feel that Saw 5 and Saw 6 are joined together, and because of that, Saw 5 does suffer a little bit. At the beginning, we see Seth killed in a jigsaw trap. Seth killed Hoffman's sister, and it is the police officer who takes revenge, despite Seth passing his test in time. Agent Strom of the FBI finds Jigsaw's body and a tape. However, he survives his test by using a pen to open up his airway and surprises Hoffman, who thought he had dealt with all the loose ends. Hoffman rescues a girl, portraying himself as a hero, and is promoted, but with Agent Strom alive, he cannot relax, especially as he receives an anonymous note claiming that someone knows what he did. A new game takes place, though it is quite secondary to the main story. Julie Benz is one of the players, and the idea is for the players to work together to survive, which does not go well. Agent Strom is off the case due to his injuries, but he goes back to the beginning seeking answers. His boss, Erickson, receives a complaint from Jill Tuck that Agent Strom is harassing her, and Hoffman seeks to cast further suspicion on Strom to remove him as an obstacle. Strom and Hoffman face off at the end of this movie, which has a pretty poor twist. Hoffman seeks to frame Strom as Jigsaw's assistant, and Erickson finds the planted evidence. There is very little John Kramer in this film. The ending feels a bit lackluster, and the game fairly superfluous to the main plot. Overall, this film is definitely better than the previous three we've discussed. However, it still finishes fairly low on my list.
Killing is distasteful.
At number 6, I am putting Saw 2 from 2005. I think this might be my most controversial pick. I do like Saw 2, just not as much as most people. Detective Matthews, played by Donnie Wahlberg, catches Jigsaw after a gruesome murder leads police to his warehouse. Unfortunately, Jigsaw has taken Detective Matthews' son and placed him in one of his games. Along with the detective's son is Amanda, the first survivor of Jigsaw, along with the usual suspects. The players are all locked in a large house, and the locks won't release for 3 hours. But due to chemicals in the air, they only have 2 hours to live. John Kramer wishes to talk with Detective Matthews, and we learn a bit more about the man behind Jigsaw, that he was diagnosed with untreatable cancer, attempted suicide by driving off a cliff but survived, and dedicated his remaining time to testing the fabric of human nature. This is definitely the best part of the film, finding out more about John Kramer and his beliefs. We learn that all the players in the locked house were arrested by Detective Matthews, who used false evidence to put them away. If any of them discover Daniel is Detective Matthews' son, his life is over. The players are busy fighting each other, and Detective Matthews loses patience with the sick John Kramer and refuses to play by the rules. I did want to mention one of my favourite traps in this film, which is the needle pit that Amanda gets thrown into. Simple, effective, and extremely squeamish. My issue with this film is that Daniel is forced to play a game because he is Detective Matthews' son and not because he did bad things. Now, I understand Amanda was placed inside the game to make sure Daniel survived, but really, he is innocent and does not fit John Kramer's code. Although Daniel survives, he would surely be traumatized by witnessing people die and breathing in toxic gas.
I've never killed anyone.
Coming in at the halfway point of number 5 is Saw 4 from 2007. During John Kramer's gruesome post-mortem, doctors find a tape preserved in his stomach. Detective Hoffman is the last man standing, but he will still be tested, as FBI agents Strom and Perez work the case. Jill Tuck is part of the FBI's investigation, and we learn that she and John Kramer lost a child named Gideon. Jill was working at a health clinic trying to help people when an addict called Cecil tried to steal drugs and shut the door on Jill's pregnant stomach, causing a miscarriage. This leads to John Kramer's first trap for Cecil and is the final straw before he turns into Jigsaw. Agent Riggs is faced with a difficult challenge. Despite being trained to help people, he must instead learn to allow them to help themselves. Jigsaw shows Riggs the truth about his victims, placing a new perspective on their situations. I will mention the trap where a husband and wife are impaled together, and the wife who has suffered domestic abuse has the power to free herself from her abuser. Obviously, this is a fictional movie, but it does give you an insight into John Kramer's reason for what he does. Agent Perez is injured in a trap, leading both Agent Riggs and Agent Strahm to fail their tests. As John Kramer dies in Saw 3, it makes sense this movie actually happens during the same timeline, helping to close any outstanding threads from before, while also setting up a few more for the future. At number 4 is Saw 6 from 2009. Now, I admit, after watching Saw 5, I assumed the Hoffman story was pretty much finished. Somehow Saw 6 manages to revive many story beats I presume to be over. One of the things I like about this film is the game feels important. All the players are from Umbrella Health Insurance, who refused John Kramer a payout after his cancer diagnosis because of a technicality on his application form. Having dealt with Agent Strahm, Hoffman feels he is home free, but the re-emergence of Agent Perez alongside Erickson means the FBI are still sniffing around and looking deeper into the death of the man who killed Hoffman's sister. Another spoke in Hoffman's will is Jill Tuck, who wishes to continue John's legacy. William denied John Kramer's claim, so he must play the game along with many of those he works with. We see a wife and child watching on along with an investigative reporter. When William reaches the end, we discover the family is of a man who William also denied a health claim to, and the reporter is his sister. This is a decent twist, and the game feels more important in this film than several others. Hoffman burns the evidence against him, and we learn that Hoffman blackmailed Amanda into killing the doctor in Saw 3, sealing her fate. You see what I mean by reviving long-forgotten story beats and making them relevant? Just as Hoffman believes he is home free, Jill Tuck gives him the ultimate test. Films 5 and 6 really join together, but this movie places the game back in the spotlight and has a much more satisfying ending, meaning it finishes higher on my list.
Everybody deserves a chance.
Breaking into the top 3 is Saw X from 2023. As we've seen from this list, the recent Saw films have not fared well, but Saw X is the exception. Saw X is a prequel, which often causes concern. But what this film does successfully is allow John Kramer to be the protagonist of the movie in a way he never has before. John Kramer is dying from an inoperable brain tumour. Hope is running out until John sees a member of his cancer support group looking healthy and claiming to be in remission. The man tells John he underwent an experimental procedure along with a unique drug cocktail that cured him. This procedure is not licensed, but John is desperate, so he investigates the Peterson Project, an unlicensed program offering life-saving treatment in Mexico, and there is enough to convince him to travel south of the border for treatment. John is picked up in a taxi before being taken to a secret location where he meets Dr. Cecilia Peterson, who is leading the project based on her father's research. After surgery, John is taken to a nearby hotel where he is told the good news, that his operation was a success, and he agrees to wire the second half of his $250,000 payment. John is so grateful for his second chance, he wishes to thank those responsible. Using a landmark viewed from inside the secret compound, John is able to return, but finds the place deserted and evidence that the whole operation was a scam. John interrogates the taxi driver and tests him, but when the man passes, John Kramer helps him. This is crucial because throughout this franchise, we see Amanda and Hoffman ignore John's rules, but here those that survive the test gain a second chance. John, with Amanda's help, tests those involved in the scam, but in a surprising twist, a young innocent boy named Carlos is dragged into the deadly game. This film deserves its high position because we get a lot of John Kramer in this movie, and he is the best part of this franchise. The film moves at a slower pace, and we actually see John's carefully laid plans derailed by an oversight, which feels like it would happen more often. Saw X is a surprisingly good movie and a return to form after several average installments that came before it. Coming in at number 2 is Saw 3 from 2006. I appreciate not everyone likes Saw 3, but it is one of my absolute favourites. Only Saw X has a longer runtime than Saw 3. For me, this film really completes the original trilogy, and if you stop watching Saw movies after this one, I wouldn't really blame you. I will raise a slight issue with this film I kinda mentioned earlier, in regards to Dr. Lin and Jeff, who are both heavily involved in the game. Now, both of these individuals have made questionable choices, but it is hard to call them criminals, and their actions were motivated by the injustice of their son being killed by a drunk driver. Now, John Kramer believes in giving people a second chance, so perhaps this falls into a grey area, but I did mention this for Saw 2, so I have to be consistent. One of the premises I really enjoy about Saw 3 is the idea you can be tested more than once, which is the case with Amanda, who is still struggling with her addiction and hurting herself. This whole film is really Amanda's test, and watching the movie a second time, you really see that, making Saw 3 a much better rewatch than most of the others on this list. Jeff is angry over the death of his son and comes face to face with everyone he holds responsible, including the judge who has a horrible test with pigs like something from Hannibal. We learn what happened to Detective Matthews before Amanda and John Kramer's ending is linked to the success of Dr. Lin and Jeff with bloody consequences. John Kramer is dying of cancer, so there's only so long they could keep him alive, and I think this movie really gives a strong conclusion to the opening trilogy. If you don't want to watch every film in this franchise, I would recommend watching the first 3 movies and perhaps Saw X, which is a prequel and really good. Topping this list at number 1 is Saw from 2004. This was directed by James Wan, who co-wrote the script with creator Lee Winnell, who also stars in the film. Ultimately, Saw is a successful story for the little guy because Lee Winnell and James Wan developed the idea and managed to sell it to a major studio. The Saw franchise has been incredibly important to the success of Lionsgate Studios, resulting in many more movies outside this franchise being made. Saw is a unique movie as Adam and Dr. Gordon, played by Carrie Elways, wake up locked in a dark room with a dead body between them. One of my favourite traps from the franchise is the very first one we see, where the Abyss guy is trapped in a barbed wire maze. As this series continued, it felt like they started to run out of ideas for decent traps, but in the early going, they were pretty imaginative. Danny Glover plays Detective Tapp, the first detective to become obsessed with resolving the Jigsaw murders. Jigsaw does not believe life is given as a prerequisite, and those who stray or abuse that gift should be tested. Those that fail have a jigsaw piece cut from their skin to show the piece they were missing to survive. The biggest deviation from a normal serial killer is that John Kramer's strict belief that he never kills anyone, and the games he plays offer people a second chance if they are willing to prove they deserve life. As this movie proceeds, we learn more about Adam and Dr. Gordon, why they are in the room, and a few details of the people that put them there. All horror movies require a good score, and I always end up with the Saw music stuck in my head for about a day after I watch the movie. This film has the best ending of any movie in this franchise, and one of the most shocking reveals of any movie I have ever watched. Along with the unique perspective this film brings, the brilliant ending is the main reason why the original Saw movie remains my favourite. Thank you for watching. Let me know if you agree or disagree with my list in the comments down below. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, give it a like and share it. I'm looking to post a new video every Monday, so be sure to come back for that and click the link on screen to watch another of my videos. Until next time, hoorah!